My guest today is Evan Minsker. Evan runs the punk newsletter See-Saw and can often be heard saying the URL see-saw.fun on his podcast Punk This Week. He's also the former news director of Pitchfork, and his byline has appeared in the New York Times, NPR Music, Rolling Stone, and Cream. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Revolutions Per Movie, Evan Minsker. Hi, Evan.
Hey, Chris. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. I'll see you in the pit. Let's just say that.
Yeah, exactly right. Yes.
You know, let me ask you this. You're doing the Lord's work on illuminating us weekly about what's going on in punk rock. Where did you grow up, and did that have a punk scene that you discovered there, or what was your entryway into the world of punk rock?
Yeah, well, so I currently live in the Midwest, and I've lived in the Midwest for my entire actual adult life. But
Okay.
I grew up in Huntington, West Virginia, from the age until I was 18 years old, and I moved to Chicago. But in Huntington, where I grew up, there were some like shows at the YWCA, and like there would be like American Legion punk shows and stuff like that. So there was like a good amount of like, there were definitely like, you know, it wasn't like an incredible punk scene. Like there weren't like bands that I would be like, oh, you've got to listen to this band from Huntington. It's like there were definitely some bands that I really enjoyed that were conceptually like fascinating. Like there was definitely a crossover between people who were in punk bands and people who were in like Marshall University's art program. So
totally.
So it was like, there's this the band that I will never forget for the rest of my life. Like there were all these ska bands and stuff like that, but there's this one band that I'll never forget called Food, and it was F-U with an umlaut D. And they all wore, it was like the time of Slipknot, so they were like doing a Slipknot send-up, but all their masks were terrible, so they were like, they were like coloring book owls and stuff like that. And then they would play like this just really like, you know, like stupid, like they were all just very like willfully silly, like heavy songs. And then there was one guy on stage with them, like everybody played instruments except one guy on stage with them would make grilled cheese sandwiches in a George Foreman grill and just chuck them into the audience while they played. Yeah, so that was the scene. It was like there was a scene. It was enough to make me feel like, oh, I've got to move to a city so I can actually enjoy more of this.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it is funny, I went and saw the Oily Blood Men, and then it's like, it's got this kid who's like 15. We're playing a show with him, and he's like in the McDonald marching band, and then it's like, it's John McIntyre who goes on to do Tortoise, right? Yeah. And you're like, I've never seen anyone play drums like this. Like, they're so good. But like the innocence of just like wanting to be part of something, like whether you're an art weirdo or you were a jock, it was so weird. Like the punk thing, at least for me, it was like the way people found their way in, it was never the same. It was never the same story. Even if in a band, it was like, this person is privileged, this person comes from the streets. It's like just so weird. Yeah.
I mean, like, and my whole thing was I figured out in high school that I really wanted to write about music. I was kind of like, around for like the mid 2000s when Pitchfork started to become like more and more like quote unquote respectable or whatever. Like it was less of like
it was terrifying. I will tell you, as somebody who had was making records, it was like, are we going to be loved? I don't know.
Yeah.
And it was scary.
And I was just a teenager, so I was just sort of like, man, these bands that they say are good are fun. And like, so I was just like getting into music that, was on the internet and not on MTV or whatever for the first time. So that kind of was my intro to like, oh, I really want to write about music. But at the same time, I was like being introduced to punk rock by, cool older friends and things like that. So it was definitely, I don't know, like one of my, I met I'm not trying to brag, but I got the chance to meet Ian MacKaye, and he was like, oh, where are you from? I was like, oh, I grew up in Huntington, West Virginia. And this guy remembers everything, so he was like, did you go to that Fugazi show that we played in 2006 at the Stone Monkey? And I was like, no, Ian MacKaye, I was outside trying to get in, but I got there too late because all of my friends who I rode over with didn't get there in time, so I was out in the cold, and then I had to go see Blade 2 at a theater instead, and it was a bad night. And he was just like, man. But that's like a teenage story right there. Like that's gonna get you deeper.
I did that with Scratch Acid, where it was like it was over 21. It used to be an all ages club called Satyricon. It just changed to 21 and over, and a bunch of us just sat outside to just listen to the band playing inside. It was like, well, that's good enough. You know?
Exactly. It's funny. The next time I got the chance to see Ian, the Evens played at a puppet show theater in Ypsilanti, Michigan, and I was living in Michigan at the time, and I again could not get inside. There was like there was a line out the door of the puppet show theater, but it was like the sound was amazing, and I was just standing right outside the door, so I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And I eventually like got like barely into the room, but it was I don't know. All of my Ian MacKaye live stories are like that. I've never been like in the front.
I saw Fugazi before they were even named play my college hippie cafeteria in Olympia, Washington. And it was like they were just shoved in the corner. It's just funny. I mean, I want to ask you this. You know, I there's so many people I talk to who just don't believe. Like we're talking about all these alternative spaces that people are playing, you know, these weird halls and puppet theaters and I have to tell people like there are more bands doing that now than ever.
Oh yeah.
Like people like just kind of don't believe it. They're like, I don't know how a band could do it nowadays. Everything's so expensive. I'm like, no, they're doing it. They're sleeping on floors, eating crappy food, starving like we did in the 80s. Like it's just it's real. I'm not wrong, am I?
No, you're absolutely right. Like so right now I live in Western Wisconsin. Most of the shows that I see a lot of punk shows in Minneapolis. And right now Minneapolis is like, I mean, it always has been home to punk houses and warehouse spaces and DIY venues, cooperatively run cafes, like all this stuff that's just sort of like, they're not bars. They're not like, there's obviously like so many like regular mainstream rooms to go and see rock shows, but like more often than not, you know, it's just like a corner of like a basement and you're just shoved in there all together. And I remember that feeling of like going to a couple of my first like basement shows in Minneapolis and just feeling like, yeah, this is what I was hoping for. Like, this is what, like, when I first got into punk music, I was not like praying to go see like bands at these big clubs, but to like end up in spaces like this that are very much just like, it's somebody's house. Somebody is making like rice in the kitchen that you have to like go through on the way to see the show or whatever.
Totally.
It's like, and like, even by the time I moved here, it was like, I don't know, at that point I, you know, was in my 30s, so I was like inevitably the old guy like at the show already. So it was just like, okay, like this is, I am here amid a bunch of very young people and trying not to make everybody feel uncomfortable with my presence.
Oh yeah, no, the people that I used to be like, oh, look at those old people over there at the show. They're like 27. You know, it was like, it was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's like, there's just a point. I remember being at a basement show and a guy coming up. He's like, hey, you look like the other old guy at the show. Let's be friends. It's like, cool. Yeah. And now we're friends.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Well, I want to ask you, I want to do a little a thought experiment or whatever you would call it.
Sure.
Just to illuminate people who might be stuck in terms of trying to find new music. Can I throw out a couple things that you might be able to string along if I say like, hey, if I'm a fan of like Poison Idea, is there a band that you could be like, hey, you might like this?
You know, I would almost just want to start recommending labels.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah, there's a label called Unlawful Assembly out of Milwaukee that I think is like one of the great hardcore labels going. Richmond, Virginia has this like incredible scene right now. There are a couple of great labels down there. Beach Impediment is one that's down there. They've been doing it for a long time, but they put out stuff really consistently. I mean, like, again, it's just like there are so 11 p.m. records. I'm gonna leave some people out, but like the hardcore, like there are so many unbelievable hardcore labels right now that I just sort of feel like are doing things that are so filthy and primitive and exciting as well. And it's interesting to have that happening concurrently as like Turnstile's like the biggest rock band in the world, and like there are hardcore bands that are so like big tent, top shelf, produced immaculately, and then you have you know, people who are doing it very much like on a 4-track or an 8-track in a basement or whatever, and it sounds amazing. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because the band we're going to talk about today, and the film we're going to talk about today, is just what you said at the end there. I mean, this is a band that doesn't have a Wikipedia page. On their Facebook page, they don't follow anyone back. You can't Shazam them from, you know, when you're watching this movie they made. The link to the trailer of the film on the In the Red record label website is broken.
Yes.
The film is not available to be rented on YouTube or streamed anywhere.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about this film by this Australian band called the UV Race. They made a film called Autonomy and Deliberation from 2012. Of course, I had not heard of this band. I had not heard of this movie. And it's fascinating. So where should we begin with this?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the UV Race, because the UV Race is a band that's like, if you look very loosely at them, they're kind of like, it's a band that's kind of, their legend has grown, but also they're not like a band. I worked at Pitchfork for, 12 years, and I didn't get to write about this band because people were like, nobody knows this band. We're not going to write about this. That's fine. But like, I always loved this band's records. They are from Melbourne, Australia. I think in the film there are 7 members of the band, but it's like it sort of hovers between 5 and 7. And it's kind of like there's this thing with Australian, specifically garage punk, where if a band is from Melbourne or Sydney, usually the band kind of, it almost goes without saying, is a de facto supergroup, because like every person who was in a band at that time in Australia was in 3 bands, and like all of the bands were very good. And the UV Race I loved because they were like an extremely talented group of musicians, and then their front man, this guy Marcus, was just like a poet who would just sort of almost like speak things very matter-of-factly over the music. And it's very absurd and very dry, but like the grooves were amazing, and I loved all of these records. And again, it's like, and their drummer is DX from Total Control and from all these other bands. And I just felt like, and Straight Jacket Nation is the other one who are referenced a bunch in the film. Like there are all these people wearing Straight Jacket Nation shirts. And it's like, yeah, it's like a guy in like one of the best underground hardcore bands in Australia is just the drummer of the UV Race. And it's just like, yeah, that's the band, is like it's like they are a big deal to a very, very, very specific subset of people, but not nearly a big enough deal to have crossed over in America or to have this movie known by like almost anybody. But yeah, about, when it came out, I remember, or I guess came out is such a specific term. It's like it probably screened twice in America, like at punk festivals or something like that. And, definitely was screened over there. But when this movie was initially, somebody sent me, like somebody who worked with the band sent me a Vimeo link of like, here's the movie. Do you want to watch the movie? And I remember watching the movie. It's 50 minutes long or something like that in my house, and just being like, this is my new favorite movie. Like I was so enamored with it, because it was, we'll talk about it, but like it has never ever left my consciousness. And I bother everybody involved periodically just to be like, what's going on with this movie? Like, are you ever gonna like put out a Blu-ray or something? And it's like, no.
When you got me a way to see this through. The director is Johan Rashid. Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah. And who has, again, he has a really interesting past and future. Like, trying to find information about him, all of a sudden I'm like, why am I on a Julian from the Strokes website that has clothing on it? Like, he's doing some campaign launch for him for the Voids, and then you're like, wait, he's done videos for like parquet courts and surfboard, but you can't find it. But I did find something interesting about him. He did write something that was really telling about the film. There was a little thing I found where he talked about, when he said, scene, colon, I am an 8-year-old kid in a movie rental store that only stocks laser discs. My older brother is with me. I'm there with him. We're in Malaysia. I remember us flicking through movies. I remember looking at a poster from the Ninja Turtles movie on the wall, yelling to me in pictures with everything I wanted: pizza, skateboards, mutants, and New York City. And yet, we walk out of the store with David Lynch's Firewalk with Me and the miniseries of Stephen King's It. These were my brother's choices. Now, this part really resonates with me with the film we're going to talk about. He says, narration always stands out for me. It can be a lazy way to compensate for weak structure, but I won't accept this low status as absolute. Narration can add more sophistication to a film, deepening and complicating it, and introducing new ideas and misdirections. It can be poetry, music. And this film is so narrative heavy, narration over thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that is, to me, like, I think that's a perfect, like, I don't know, like, everything that happens in that Laserdisc only video store does kind of like condense into all of the projects that you'll see him do, especially in this movie. But yeah, like, this is a movie without subtext. It is a movie that is all text. That is like, the narration will really do all of the heavy lifting. There is like, it's also, it's an interesting film because the dialogue too is not like, it all feels very rigid and like it should just be narration in some ways because it's just like him, like, I don't know, like, should we just talk about what happens in the movie, like what the structure of the movie is?
I do want to say something at the top, that this film, the majority of the film is the voices are recorded over, dubbed over.
Yes.
Again. So there's like, so if people are talking on the street to each other, it's like they re-record it later in like a empty void, right? And it creates this really weird, unsettling, lo-fi thing because the emotions are kind of off a little.
Absolutely.
And it's so like, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm selling my guitar. I'm not doing so hot. And then, but it's like this tonality that is, to me, very Australian, very inside joke, very like, oh, we get this. We're not interested if you get this at all. I just wanted to say that at the top, that this is like not necessarily the most like film that everyone can walk into and understand like where these people are coming from.
No, it's very uncanny. Like, there's a lot that's going on that just feels like there are multiple different types of like film and camera used. So then it's like there's like the frame rate changes. Like,
there'll be things on the side, like little extra visual components that are like kind of abstract of people walking down streets or trees or whatever that frame depending on where the aspect ratio changes.
Yeah, and perhaps most importantly, nobody in the film is an actor. It's like very clearly nobody's really trying that hard to act. I think they're just like delivering the lines and like maybe they'll give a facial expression that matches it, but more often than not, it's just very like matter of fact stated, super dry. Sometimes somebody will like laugh and it's clearly like they're just like laughing at the ridiculousness of filming this in the first place and not reacting to like what's being said in the scene. But it all of this, like all of that tone stuff is actually kind of exactly what the records are like for me, where it's like the records are very like everything, like there are funny things in them, like there are funny things said, there are like things that are like kind of like everything's there's a song that they have on a record that came out probably a couple years before they made this movie called Racism by the UV Race. And the song is called Life Park. And I've always been obsessed with this song. And it sounds really profound. Like it sounds like but it's just this narrative where Marcus is like, he's like, I quit my job. I left my wife. It's like I was working 9 to 5, and it's like everything's just very drab and plain. But it's like, oh, this guy's going through like an impossible time, and the movie is kind of like that, where it's like
it's so self-deprecating.
Yes,
this film,
yes.
like nobody can get above water in this thing, and I do think that like since this film cannot be seen and we're not allowed to share it, we should walk people through it, which is a very unique situation. But I do love at the beginning. So, when you told me about this film, I went and listened to some of the records. You can find them, online and things like that, because I just was like, where can I buy one of these? It was really tricky. But they do have a Bandcamp page, and I was listening to stuff. So I got a sense of like musically where they're from, which is also really a cool lo-fi, it's New Zealand, Flying Nun. It's not Australian, but it has that kind of ramshackle thing. This is not like Negative Approach type of punk rock. This is like kind of sparky, whimsical, like droney, but with lots of cool little melody things poking all out of it. It's I don't know. That's how I would describe it.
I would say absolutely. I would say like that. All of that is exactly right, and I think the vocal approach really has a lot more in common with like records like you said, Flying Nun records, but like also like in terms of contemporary stuff, like you're talking about like Courtney Barnett, like Australian like quote unquote dole wave artists. They don't like it when you call them that, where it's like chill Australian rock and roll, where it's like sort of speak sung a lot of the time, or like sung very like almost like the singing is a very light touch or something like that. But it's just the personality is kind of the driving force in like whoever the singer is in the music. And here with Marcus, it's just like with the movie, like the movie, Marcus is the central character, and everything he says is kind of in this monotone. Everything he says is just, like his voice doesn't like go up and down.
The first thing he says is, in the beginning, life was great. I had everything. I had the babe, the bike, and most of all, I had my band. We were the UV Race, and we were very happy. And it's like him, like, just like doing like donuts or whatever with a woman on his back, I guess, his babe. And then it cuts to the band for the first time they're playing. The sound is like totally smashed out. He's wearing like a soft serve ice cream cone on his head while he's singing.
Yes.
And it's like, this is the band.
And like the thing about like, so this movie, it's like they basically say, and it's so funny because I think that there is this like self-deprecating thing happening where they're like, oh yeah, everybody loved us. We were a great band. And it's like you go around later in the film. So he's in a street scene and you see this, like he's in the middle of a mob of girls who were at the time when they were filming, One Direction was the biggest thing in the universe. So they're all singing the biggest One Direction song in the street. And that's like, to me, I feel like that's like one of the most important parts of the movie is he's saying, oh, everybody loved us. We were this great band. And then like you actually look at people in Melbourne and it's like, by and large, nobody knew about them, cared about them, gave a shit about them.
Right.
They were playing these shows that like, people in punk bands were very excited to attend. And, they still play every now and again, but like they are, again, like they are very much like for somebody like me, I am obsessed with Australian punk music of a certain vintage. This is exactly it. And like there are scenes in this movie where you'll be like, oh, there's a scene where a guy comes up in a car and another guy comes up and he starts to wash the windshield. And the guy in the car is Mikey Young, who is in Total Control and Eddie Current's Suppression Ring, who are two of I think, the greatest bands of all time, and they're like in this throwaway scene, like doing this like, and Mikey's like, you know, mastered all these incredible punk records over the years. It's actually like a meme in the punk community. You can buy a hat that says "Mastered by Mikey Young."
Okay.
But so Mikey's like this legend, and then here's like Brendan Suppression, who's like, you know, doing this like, you know, 1940s style window washer character from Australia.
Let me get this for you, sir.
Yeah, exactly. And then as he finishes, Mikey goes like, "All right, I'll see you at practice," and then he drives off. And it's like such a throwaway moment, but like it's just for people who love this music to be like, "Oh, those are the two guys from Eddie Current Suppression Ring."
Yeah, on the back of the album it says, you know, because there's a soundtrack for it.
Yes.
And it says Autonomy and Deliberation is the most important film of 2012, featuring many cameos from some of the finest in Melbourne music, including members of School of Radiant Living, Twerps, Boom Gates, Total Control, Lost Animal, Dick Diver, Woolen Kits, and filmed in many scenic Melbourne and rural Victorian locations. This is a film about music, the redemptive quality of a good song. So that's how they're summing it up. But I did want to ask you this. So early in the film, all of a sudden you see the band, and then it's like there's a tearing of like on screen of like, oh, the band's broken up. You know?
Yeah.
He's like left his wife. He started to spend the band money at the Greyhounds, and it shows him in a really like, it's a kind of a disturbing scene of him at the Greyhounds, like just yelling and trying to win in a really like underlit, depressed thing.
Yes.
Is there any truth to this story of like, because there was a part of me that was like, this seems like the kind of band that would be like, oh yeah, there was one time where I did take the money and blow it at the Greyhounds, you know, or am I just projecting?
See, this is, I don't know if there's truth to the story. I don't think they ever broke up. I think like the thing. So like the entire movie hinges on Marcus takes all of the band's money, blows it at the Greyhound track. The band breaks up. He goes out and lives in the country for like 3 years or something like that with his mom, and then comes back to Melbourne. And he said, well, and he tells his mom that there's this amazing sequence. Like
that's my favorite scene.
The soundtrack is so good, like because the soundtrack, it has like actual UV race like punk songs that are very much like verse, chorus, verse or whatever, and you know, really excellent. But then they also do this thing where it's like Marcus is not involved seemingly. It's like the rest of the band creating these like psychedelic kind of like, I don't know, spirit voyage kind of music where it's like very psychedelic and like sprawling, and you just see Marcus walking through the gorgeous countryside and then walks into his house, and then just like the music's over and he tells his mom like, "Hey mom, I gotta go get the band back together. I'm bored. I want to go get the band." And he just says, "I'm gonna go get the band back together" a million times.
I wrote it down here. He says, "Hey mom, I'm going to get the band back together. It's really bumming me out. Nothing to do in the country. It's so boring. I'm going to do something and get the band back together. I'm going to see Al, Georgia, Dan, Moses, and Alex. I know I broke the band up from gambling, but I fixed my ways. All right, bye." And then the mom's like, "All right, bye." She's like so checked out. She's not interested in it at all.
She's like, "All right, have fun," or something like that. Yeah,
it's just like, it like to me, I'm like, oh, she's the best actor in the film. Like, you know, really like is. I really was like, wow. Like,
well, and this sets up what ultimately I think kind of speaks to me about the movie is like, it's the narrative structure of the movie is the Blues Brothers. Because it's literally just like we've got to get the band back together, and then they just go and find members of the band in different ridiculous sequences, and
wow.
and
it's put that together. It's so true. We got to get the band back together. I'm getting the band back together.
But it's like the most drab version of that. It's so funny, but like, and it's like every scene. I mean, it's like different. It's gradients of ridiculous, right? Because like all the members of the UV race, it's like one's become a sex worker, one has fallen to becoming a pickpocket to support the other member who's decided to become a poet, and he has delusions of how he's earning their keep, but in fact, his girlfriend has to like rob people in order to support their lifestyle.
He's not making money. I you know, but he believes he's, you know, I let him believe that he's, you know, the breadwinner with his poetry.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's a guy who goes in he answered an ad in a paper
Yes.
that is so he's being hired to go into people's houses while they're sleeping and take pictures of people sleeping, right? Is that
Yes, that is exactly right. Moses from the band has decided to be like, oh, and so there's a whole sequence where they show some pictures that he's taken of sleeping people, and then they show the sequence of him like sneaking into somebody's window, and then just like taking a photograph of a woman. She wakes up and she's like, "Hey, are you in the UV rays?"
Yeah. And then he plays a song.
He plays a song, and then that was a great sequence. Like, there's something very, like, maybe Lynchian about it, where, like, first of all, like, the entire premise is, like, dark, but it's played not at all dark. Like, she's not disturbed by this happening, or, like, he's not immediately arrested for breaking and entering and all this stuff. But, like, it's played really lightheartedly. Everything in the movie really is. Like, there are some dark themes that are just kind of brushed aside a bit for the sake. It's almost like a cartoon in that way, where it's just sort of like, oh yeah, like who cares? It's like
it's very Monkees in a weird way. It's like this is a band that you're like, oh, they all live together, of course, and somebody cooks and somebody cleans and somebody does this, somebody writes song. It's just like it has that vibe of communal thinking.
Absolutely. But that scene where the details that I love from that scene are like the woman who's probably, again, like in a band, and like because there are so many people, like the earlier in the movie, we can talk about it separately, but there's that scene where Al Montfort Al is like found on the street. He's the first member of the band to be found, and he's on the street with a woman named Steph, and they sing this lovely song called "People on the Street," and they start just sort of like singing this song together, and it's really, really sweet. And it's like, oh yeah, it's great because these are two members of Dick Diver, which is one of the greatest like Australian bands of that time. And Al has been in a million great bands, including the UV Race, including so like East Link, all these other bands. But I just am genuinely like, so I'm like primed to be really into this movie. And then you get to this part where he's in the guy's like in the house, he's been taking pictures, he starts singing a song, and it's like every shot of the woman is her like picking up a cigarette, lighting it, taking one puff, putting it out immediately, picking it back up the next shot, lighting it once, taking one puff, putting it out. She does it like 5 times. It makes no sense, but it's such a like the dedication to that as like a micro bit within this song.
That's what's funny about this film. This film is definitely made for the UV race first.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
And they're friends. They're like, we have a sense of humor. We have a sense of style. We have our own language. That bands do. When you're in a van, you come up with your own absurd stories and your own, ways of just getting through things. And a lot of it is just a communal think and a new type of language. And this film is all about, again, the people they know, the inside jokes, probably certain streets that they think are hilarious that we have no context at all.
Yeah.
Like, we're shooting them busking on this thing that's probably like, there's a reason they picked that location that
Absolutely.
we will never know. But I did really like that, that is the first scene that happens when he gets to the city. And basically, when Marcus leaves the countryside to go to the city, it's like, he's like walking around looking at statues, and he's watching the recurring scene of somebody pickpocketing someone, and he's just like, it's like you can feel like the city does not like the country kid.
Yes,
they're really playing into that too. Like, the city is grimy and will spit you out, chew you up and spit you out, kind of thing. Like, and again, it has that trope of like, I'm gonna go to the city and get the band, like, I'm gonna make something happen, Mom, be proud of me, and like, good luck.
Well, and it's like, I love the statues bit is another bit I really like, where he's pointing, he's like, that's Joan of Arc. she's a babe. What a babe. And he's like, that's Charles Latrobe. What a babe. And then he like pans down, and there's the guy from Circle Pit, like sitting in front of Latrobe. He's like, hey, what are you doing sitting in front of Latrobe? He's like, you've been gone for 3 years, and you're asking me why I'm sitting in front of Latrobe. But it's just like, again, these are jokes that like I probably get like 10% of them, like
Yes.
of why it's so funny, but I love it. It's but to me, like, I think to your point about like this is a movie that they made for them. I think that to me is why this is such a punk movie, like more than the songs in it or the fact that nobody can act or like the crazy way that it's shot or the many different narrative approaches that they take. It's just that like they're not making this for anybody else, and I think that is what a lot of punk rock has to be right now. Is it's just like nobody is asking for you to start a band and make a weird music video or make a whole narrative film about your band or like anything like that. Like, to me, there's something wildly inspiring when a band takes a swing that is clearly just from like one of their late night harebrained schemes, and they were just like, yeah, let's follow this to its logical conclusion. But also, like, I think that it's funny because it's like it's such a silly movie with like a singleness of purpose, and the title is Autonomy and Deliberation, and like I think like that whole idea of like I am in search of deliberation in my life, it's like a perfect use of words. Like, you could really see that these people are, at the end of the day, for being such a ridiculous band where the singer's like got his shirt off and wearing a silly hat and all this stuff, like they are definitely poets. Like, this is they could have said that in a much worse way.
Yeah, and the title also is very serious. Like,
Yes.
if you were like, I'm going to see Autonomy and Deliberation, you'd be like, oh, like, is that the new part of the new Iranian trilogy? You'd be like,
Yeah.
Criterion have that yet? Because the band they obviously take what they do seriously, because again, when you make something like this, you have to show up and do the work. You have to be there. You have to know what you're doing, even if it's scrappy. And
Yes.
so many people talk about stuff and they don't do it. And I wanted to ask you this. There were bands that did lots of really cool DIY seat of the pants video stuff, like Sun City Girls, or whatever.
Yes,
They would
yeah.
make these videotapes, but they were like compilations of ideas and skits. A narrative film by punk bands, there's so few. I can think of like Wild Zero by Guitar Wolf. I could think of
which I've
Rude
never
Boy
seen.
it's great. Rude Boy by The Clash. Oh God, what else is there? A Rock and Roll High School, where
Rock and Roll High School, of course.
right,
Yeah.
that are narrative that this band that these punk bands are in. It's I can't think of many. I'm sure there's ones we're missing, but it's really weird to think that like this is not a documentary. This is not a concert film. This is not an assembly of different ideas scrambled together to make a 90-minute thing. This is like them wanting to, like, we're going to write dialogue and we're going to shoot in different locations, and it's going to have a beginning, middle, and the end, even though it's very fractured.
Yeah, it's very, very fractured. And there are some scenes where they'll be like, okay, we've got a song right here, but we don't quite have enough footage to like build out the entire scene. So there'll just be like an interstitial of black and white, like Marcus in the country still dancing with his shirt off, and that's all that's happening in the shot.
Right.
So it's like there are moments where they're clearly like they've got to kind of stretch what they have, but there is indeed like there is a hero's journey of sorts where it's like, okay, I have failed, I broke up the band, and now I must do the right thing. I got to get the band back together, and then it culminates in a finale where they play a show. But what's funny is like, I think normally in that type of narrative, the finale would be like a big triumphant like Last Waltz style, Blues Brothers style concert where it's like everybody's there. Like he's been talking the whole movie. Oh, everybody loved us. We had so much fun together. We're gonna be so big. And then like this, it's the final scene in the film, and they play this song, and it's great. And then the camera shoots over to the crowd. There is no one in the room. End of movie. And also, right before they play, Marcus says something. He's like, "Oh, I can't wait to go back to the dog tracks." Like he's already like
he's destroyed it.
He's like everything.
I thought that was great.
Any lesson you could have learned on the way, like he absolutely like neglects or whatever. But it's such an amazing movie to me because it's like there are moments where it's like, okay, everything is like really scripted and like really like, again, like the dialogue is so like disjointed between the weird kind of like uncanny isolated way that it's recorded compared to how it's presented on the screen. And then you have this scene near the end where it's like the final band member. So it's Marcus, and he's talking to Daniel Stewart, aka DX, who is again just like have you ever listened to Total Control, Chris?
Yes, I've heard Total Control. Yes. And I've heard Eddie, I've heard Eddie Current Suppression Ring and things, but there's so many, like when I looked at the other list of things, I'm like, no, I don't know Twerps.
Oh, Twerps is fantastic too.
I don't know School of Radiant Living. You know?
I don't know. I actually don't know School of Radiant Living.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. Like, there are too many bands overall. Like, if you look at just the band Eyelids,
we're doing our best.
Yeah,
we're doing our best.
We're doing our best. I would say, like, there are so many great records to check out, kind of like within this constellation. But but Daniel, who was in Total Control, it's like so funny because Total Control, like, he's the front man, he's the voice of it. He's definitely like the lyricist. He's just like this. I think. There's a new record coming out that it's like his first one in a bit. And it's DX and this guy Buzz Clatworthy from the band RMFC, and it's called Station Model Violence, and it's coming out in a couple months. And I already listened to it, and it's just absolutely breathtaking. So like, this is a guy who's responsible for music that has made me cry, like music that has really moved me over my life. And here he is in the scene with Marcus, and he's acting like this really detached poet who's like, he was just like, oh, why would I do a band or whatever? And so then Marcus is like, says like some of the stock, like, I want to get the band back together. We have so much fun, whatever. And then the scene stops, and then the actual director of the film, Johan, is in the room with them, and he does what is clearly a scripted version of what would really be said in this moment, where he's like, you need to actually dig in and say why this is important to you. This is an important moment in the film. This is the last time where you can make your case, because the entire movie he has been saying the most like cardboard one-dimensional version of why he wants to get the band back together. And so now he has a chance to like, and then suddenly there's this like 45 seconds of the movie where Marcus is speaking conversationally, earnestly about what he loves about being in the band, and it's not eloquent
and not overdubbed either.
No,
it's like a real. It's the first time where it's not him being like, "Hey, I'm getting the band back." It's like, it's like a confessional, and some of it was really, there's some pain in it too. He's talking about. He's like, I didn't realize how important it was to express yourself and be supported. Where I come from, it's not that kind of place. If you get 10 goals in the footy field, that's great. But if you write a sick guitar riff you have nowhere to play it and nobody knows you, he's just like, it just doesn't matter, Yeah. It's just like, and just kind of the isolation of being a creative person and just not having a way to share it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. This scene really struck me huge this time, because the first time I watched it again, I was the nights and weekends writer for Pitchfork, so I didn't work in the office with everybody, and I didn't have like a really like concrete sense of community in terms of like, I mean, I went to shows and like I talked to people on the internet or whatever, but like I did kind of feel like in my creative pursuits anyway, I was kind of out like on an island by myself. Right. And now what I do, I feel a lot more tapped into a greater community than I ever did. And it's like, especially like people are very like supportive about creative endeavors and like are just like chasing wild ideas, like, you know, making a movie like this or just like making comics or, you know, zines or records or whatever, and putting on shows and doing, you know, just doing stuff. And I think that there is something like really like beautiful to me about that scene where he's just like, yeah, being involved in a scene makes a world of difference because you're actually seen for what it is that you do. You're actually like recognized. And I don't know, I think right now at this moment in my life, to be very vulnerable with you, Chris, on your podcast, it's like, you know, I do feel like I had this moment in my life where, you know, my work that I was doing as like a music writer was very much like on this very prominent stage, but it felt like I wasn't really engaging with a community at all. And now I'm doing this for, you know, nothing. Doing it for myself. I'm very much doing it
Join the club.
as a passion project. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like, you know, I'm really starting to actually feel like I'm part of something, like I'm part of a community and like I'm connecting with people. So I think this is like, it's a really, really beautiful thing. And I think it's cool in this movie where you see like, especially in the scenes in like the city, in like the streets of Melbourne, like there is this big disconnect between like how other people are connecting in mass, like in the city versus like these little pockets of conversations that are happening here and there where somebody's like, oh, hey, like, remember the band that we used to do? Let's do that again or whatever. Like those moments are so much more profound, obviously, than like, you know, a bunch of people singing a One Direction song as a mass in front of a mall or whatever it is.
Well, and I think what you're saying is true. And it kind of comes up in this film is that we end up where we're supposed to end up in kind of a weird, magical way. Like, yes, these people are stuck with each other no matter what, right? They may go spin off and do their thing, but they're always going to come back to this. It's amazing. You watch like the Gun Club documentary, the amount of people who are like crawling out a window to get away from the band. And then a year later, they're like, I'm back. It's too good. I love it. You know, and like, you know, just finding, like you said, like just being on an island and then finding a different, like you were meant to be able to do, you know, your weekly show. Yeah. It was like what you were meant to do. But sometimes you have to go through like the awkwardness to realize kind of like, oh, this is why we need to get the band back together. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, like right now, so the UV Race as a band, like they recently played a couple big shows, but it seems like they get together when they can. It's not like an active, like they're recording and working on new stuff. It's like everybody's kind of in this like other thing. And I think I could talk about like everybody's individual bands, but I wanted to talk specifically about Marcus is in a duo right now, and his creative outlet is it's a band called Hot Tubs Time Machine.
And Hot Tubs Time Machine?
Yeah, so like the film Hot Tub Time Machine.
Right, but with a plural.
But it's plural. Yeah, exactly. So the new Marcus's new project is called Hot Tubs Time Machine, and if I would recommend one song that I think is like really emblematic of like what Marcus is like, it's outside of the UV Race. There's a Hot Tubs Time Machine song called 50 Shades of Marcus, and it's the most like it's just like he talks about like what his coworkers are like and like how they don't get him and how they don't understand what he's like and how he contains multitudes. It genuinely, like, to me, like, that's a very important piece of the puzzle is that like while the movie kind of presents like, oh, if he doesn't have the UV Race, he has nothing. It's like, well, he does have Hot Tubs Time Machine. He has more outlets to come. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah. I mean, just saying this film features one of the minds behind Hot Tubs Time Machine says everything you need to know about the energy of this film. That somebody like and the humor of it. If you think that's funny, then you would find this funny. Sadly, and do you know why like we can't see it as a general public thing? I mean, when you sent me that email from Johan, yes, he was just seemed like he was very like, oh, thanks for reminding me about the sequel we're supposed to finish up. I'm just like, wait, what's going on? Like,
yeah, I genuinely didn't know this until I reached out, because I've just been obsessed with Autonomy and Deliberation. And when I reached out, I found out that, well, first of all, I think that this movie just probably ended up in a position of like, it would probably just take organization on the band's part to like get a copy of the movie out specifically. If I'm surprised that it didn't come out when In the Red released the like soundtrack. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
I did too.
You,
I was really
could have just
surprised.
like slid a DVD in with that,
or
like,
just
maybe.
a link. Like,
Yeah.
here's a, yeah.
For sure. I think it should. Honestly, Chris, this is my way of bullying everybody involved to get this out available to everybody, because it's such a special movie. I really think that, even though it's a silly movie and an absurd movie, it's like, I really love it. But so I reached out. I said, hey, I wanted to get Marcus's blessing. Marcus gave his blessing for us to talk about it and share clips and all that. He said, reach out to Johan to get his blessing, and he can send you whatever. Johan immediately gave his blessing. Once again, should be noted, like, Johan's on, like, his band is on Cult Records, Julian Casablancas label.
Yes.
So it's like he's got stuff going on, and that's probably another reason why it's taken a bit to get things off the ground. But Johan revealed that there's a sequel, and so I asked him about
the UV
it.
Race Disgrace Space.
The UV Race Disgrace Space. And I asked
space film.
And it's got, like, it's a space movie. So the plot of the movie is, I guess the UV Race decides to become the first punk band in space. But when they get there, they realize that aliens only like synth pop. so that's the elevator pitch of the UV Race Disgrace Space.
Right, and we'll never see it. And the link he sent was put up 10 years ago. I'm like, wait, they made this like 11 or 12 years ago? What is going on?
I think the holdup is, so it's this movie, Autonomy and Deliberation, isn't just like a greatest hits album of UV Race songs. It's an all new original soundtrack of songs. And so they did an all new original soundtrack of songs for the UV Race Disgrace Space, and they didn't finish it, I guess. So like, I think that they're like, I think that me being interested and me saying I want to talk about this on Chris's podcast, I think was enough for them to be like, okay, he said, like, I'm going to get in touch with Al. Hopefully something can happen here where it could happen. And listen, if it happens, and they've just got to figure out, like, look, I don't know what I'm doing, but like I'll put out I'll burn some DVDRs and like start and slide them to people. I just want people to see this movie. I love, like, and I can't wait to see the next one. It promises to be perhaps and maybe probably terrible, but
it looks very different. Like, it's aliens with glowing eyes and tinfoil spaceships and lots of wigs and space age makeup. But again, they're making a movie. They made a movie.
Yes.
It's just sitting there to be finished. It's just fascinating because, again, the first one can't be seen.
Yeah.
And yet there's another one baking there. And I love that out of all the things you could talk about with punk rock and movies, there's multitudes. And you're like, I want to talk about this unseen thing that means the world to me. I just think it's beautiful. I mean, that's what the show can be. I love it.
Well, and that's what, like, so my website, See-Saw, I weirdly, I think it started a bit as like a love letter to the things that I've gotten obsessed with over the years as a person who loves punk rock and rock and roll. And, I wrote this oral history of a record by the band Hank Wood and the Hammerheads called, it was their second album. It's called Stay Home. It came out in 2014. So I did it as like a 10-year anniversary oral history about the making of that record. And it's a record that I really love. That band released 3 albums. And the consensus among the band and most of their fans is that the album that I love the best is the worst one, and that is that the first and the third one are the best ones, or whatever.
Of course.
So like, I'm telling the story of this record, and people, and like the band was literally like, "Why do you like this record?" I'm like, I will rattle off a ton of reasons why this is your best record, and I kind of almost maybe convinced some of them that I was right, or like that, or that I had a point anyway. Sure. And it was just one of those things where like, this is exactly like that for me, where I've thought often about like, well, that's my next one. If I ever do like an oral history of a thing that like nobody knows about, is excited about, like, you know, has seen, cares about, I would love to do like a longer piece about this movie, because I love, like, again, this is a movie where I watched it and I couldn't believe my eyes, because, you know, my dad worked in, he was a producer for a local television station for the whole beginning of my life, WOWK Channel 13 in Huntington, West Virginia. Okay. And he was the producer for like, he would do a program called Kids Mag, which was like a news magazine where like hosted by like local teenagers and like kids or whatever. Yes. And it's like television that doesn't exist anymore. Like they don't like.
Oh, you know. Yeah. We're on in Portland. I was obsessed with it. And then
exactly.
I had a letter in Zoom. You know what I mean? So that shows you my age.
Exactly. There we go. But that's the thing. Like my dad used to do. They would have like a children's film festival, and they would like, all these people from the community would just like, because it was like the age of everybody had a camcorder, so it was like people would make their like homemade movies and send them in, and then like me and my brother and my dad and some other people on like the, you know, whatever TV film festival thing would watch these like weird movies that kids were making in like the sticks of West Virginia. And so like to me, like, and there was this one that I'll never forget, and it was called Adventures in Ravenswood, where it was like kids in West Virginia, and they were just like filming out their car window in Ravenswood, West Virginia, and as they would pass a church, they would just go, "Hey, look, a church," and they would talk about all the cool stuff to do in Ravenswood. It was like the whole bit. They'd be like, "Hey, look, a church. Hey, look, another church. Look, another church. It's another church." And like, and it's just that for like the whole movie, and that I think is like one of my foundational like aesthetic things. So when I saw this movie, it just immediately clicked into place as like punk rock, crazy, like weird apathy, but also narrative structure.
So, that's so beautiful. It's so funny where we get those early things that they're in the most unlikely spaces to define our humor and where we go in life. Oh my gosh, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, well,
that's a great story.
And you, having worked in a video store, must have seen so many like independent, like no budget things that were just made by like people and their friends to like make themselves laugh. And
absolutely, I remember Miranda July would come in with her VHS, you know, homemade cassettes. There were a daisy chain VHS where people would just like kind of finish the stories. And, you know, I'd make them a free rental. You know, I'd be like, hey, this is like, I want people to see this. So I would make my own artwork for things. And it was just fun. Yeah, because it was still so seat of the pants, you know, where someone would call up from the middle of nowhere and be like, I have a film I made. Could you just put it in your store if I send it to you? Like, they're not even asking me to buy it. And I'm like, well, do you want me? No. I just want it in the store. I'm like, okay, well, then I'll make it free, right?
Yeah.
So I just had a section like that where it was like, hey, take a look at this, you know, try it out, you know. So I had a section like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like there was something to me where it was like getting a movie like this, like compared to like, I don't know, like to me, I think there's something more inspiring about a movie like Autonomy and Deliberation, because it feels like, even though I don't have like equipment or whatever, it's like it's a movie that feels attainable. Like it's like the kind of thing that makes you feel like, oh, I could do that. Like that's like the punk rock thing, right? Where you watch something or you listen to something and you go, oh yeah, I could probably do that. And then like it inspires you to make your own ridiculous little thing. So I don't know. I think that's why for me, like when I've been listening to your podcast and I love it, and it's just like there are all these movies on here that are just like gradients of professional, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Like, and to me it's like, well, I think realistically I love so many things that are on this far end of unprofessional, that are like that's like pretty much all I write about at this point as a music journalist anyway. So like doing something, bringing that to the table, I feel like I want more people to watch this movie, like, because I want to see more scenes, because, you know, my whole project Seesaw is just documenting punk scenes across the world in the
Right.
US and, you know, way beyond. And I just feel like I would love it if every punk scene had an Autonomy and Deliberation. Like that would be of whatever narrative framework people chose, just like a punk film that is completely low budget where nobody's an actor. Like I love stuff like this.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that that bands don't do more of this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind
Yeah,
of like
I think so.
I but it does take everyone. Everyone has to want to like put something in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes in bands, like there's just a different hierarchy in terms of like involvement, interest, time, you know, passion.
Yeah.
And so, you know, in this film, it's obvious that like if you're going to be like, okay, you're going to be the pickpocket, they're like, cool. That's all I needed to know. Like, where do you want me? And not every band is going to be like, cool, where do you want me? You know?
Yeah, exactly. You have to have the willingness of a Georgia to put on a fake mustache and a newsy hat and run around the streets of Melbourne and pickpocket from people while Marcus delivers his 4 times delivered catchphrase, "Hey, that bitch just took your wallet." And then, which is, I think, a play on Back to the Future, maybe. it's like every now and then you'll be like, is this from another famous movie that I've seen, but it's just delivered as like with 0% acting.
But Back to the Future didn't have a scene after he says it where he's just sitting on a staircase, kind of tilting his head back and forth while a song plays, you know, with nothing else going on. I think Back to the Future did not have the patience to feel like that, like across the seas, Evan is going to see this and be like, oh, this is speaking to me because of my dad's work in television and me watching a child film festival where kids my age were making camcorder films for the first time. I'm like, you're like, I get it.
Yeah, I feel like if Bob Zemeckis brought that into the screening room or whatever, it's like, Bob, the test audiences did not like when Michael J. Fox sat there for 6 minutes doing nothing.
Well, Chuck Berry is just playing in the background and he's just like nodding back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. You know, again, I think that this is a movie where it's one of these things where I think that when I think about the fact that it wasn't released properly or like put out on DVD or whatever, I think that there is this thing that happens in a lot of punk scenes where there are probably some classic records just like sitting on a hard drive and like people just can't get it together for that last like 5% of work to like put the thing out, even if the band is already broken up or like everybody's scattered or whatever. And I just, I don't know, punk people who love punk music and punk things, they want the stuff, man. We collect this stuff. We like it too much. So it's just like, so I just want to tell people, like, if you have some like a record or something like that like you've almost got over the finish line, but like life's gotten in the way and it's been like 10 years. It's like, just go back to the archives. Let's see what you got. Like, I think it would be so much better to have it out in the world than like hiding somewhere in the wings. So this is just me bullying the people in the UV race to release the films. We need them so bad.
Well, if they make one more, then they got the trilogy, and then it can play in New York for like a whole weekend.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
absolutely. And again, just like maybe it'll take a few years for the visa situations to clear up for bands, but like, a weekend. Like, listen, you literally just like dream booked like a weekend of like Seesaw Presents moments where it's like three films by the UV race and a live performance by the band. It's like,
I think what they need is, so they've done the Rube to the City to get the band thing.
Yeah.
They've done the space age sci-fi film.
Yeah.
I think it'd be pretty great to see like a Star is Born kind of thing where maybe Marcus is like really like too big and too like, impenetrable. and he's just got problems, and everyone's like, come on, you're brilliant, get it together.
Yeah, so you think that Marcus is like the Jackson Maine situation? He's like
Yes.
he's the Bradley Cooper character, and of course I'm naming the most recent film because I don't remember. They're all the dudes.
James Mason.
James Mason.
James Mason is.
I can't remember the last name. Like they're all last name Maine, but I can't remember the first name of the James Mason one. But that is obviously the Star Is Born to watch is the Judy and James Mason one. But an absolutely heartbreaking and incredible film. But so you think that there's got to be like somebody who's making music differently than Marcus is making it, or like achieving stardom on their own level, and then Marcus is just like hung out to dry. I think they should just call it A Star Is Born.
I think so too. Or a Stars Is Born.
Yeah, the plot is now that he's in Hot Tub's time machine, he is just like he's off in his own direction, and people can't
I think a trilogy would be great. I just could see like just the disconnect. It'd be so fun to see them do something that's just a really like a melodrama, because just the way he delivers his lines, to see him like be given some like real serious meaty like, you know, verbiage would be really fascinating to see him like, you know, throw a bottle across the room or something like that.
Yeah.
You know,
I think really there is a lot of meat on that bone. I think that would be really amazing.
I hope you're listening, UV Race and Johan.
Marcus.
Come on. You've got 2 tickets sold already.
Al, Georgia, DX, come on. We can do it. Get the band back together. Let's make a third one. This sounds great. No, I'm seriously, I think the UV Race in A Stars Is Born is probably going to be in my dream journal for the rest of my life now. Thank you very much.
That's right. Oh, that's great. Evan, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think we did something very unique where people had to sit with our visual interpretation of this thing that they can't see so far. But hopefully it will change the trajectory of the release of this, and we'll see the trilogy in New York soon. Can't wait to cut the ribbon. I don't even know why they would cut a ribbon for an opening of a thing. Let's just say that maybe they're going to build a whole new space for this to be seen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen
right.
now. There's definitely going to be a ribbon somewhere.
Okay.
A giant pair of scissors. I'll be there.
At the end of every episode, I ask a question, but I tailor it depending on what we're talking about.
Okay.
So, on a scale of 10 Australian dollars being the lowest and 650 Australian dollars being the highest, how many Australian dollars would you bet at the Greyhound racetrack to support your habit of watching and listening to the UV Race's Autonomy and Deliberation?
You know, I got a family. And I don't want to end up in a situation like this film. So
right.
I might just say 25 and then you know, pray for forgiveness from this band that I love so much.
You got to be responsible. We can't all be Marcus.
Yeah,
sorry, the correct answer was 35.
Oh, 35.
You were very close. I will tell you what. I'll meet you at the racetrack. We'll go in together.
Okay, I love it.
We'll match our goods together.
No,
you know,
fantastic. I will see you there. I will somehow get 25 Australian dollars in actual physical money. We'll be good.
Yeah, we got to find a Greyhound race that exists. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore.
Yeah, probably in Australia. Maybe that's where we gotta go. Maybe this is just leading us there. Maybe we're just taking a very, very long flight. At the end of the day.
And our seats are booked. All right, we're good.
All right, excellent.
All right, everybody. We'll see you in Australia.
We'll see you in Australia.
Thank you for listening to Revolutions Per Movie. We release new episodes every Thursday on your favorite podcast app and additional bonus episodes every Sunday on our Patreon. The show is a completely independent affair, so the best way to support the show is through our Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionspermovie, where you can get weekly bonus episodes and shows, exclusive limited edition flexi discs and records and CDs featuring guests that have appeared on the show, and other exclusive goods sent to you just for joining. You can follow us on social media at Revolutions Per Movie and also find out more information about our various guests in the episode show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye.